Hi, Lanaya. Hey, Josh. Welcome to the Assignment of Benefits podcast. How you guys doing?
Good, good. How are
Great.
you?
Good. What an awesome way to end a Friday by talking about blockchain and OpenIDL and the Linux Foundation and the state of the great old state of Florida. So I'd love to jump into it. We start all of these by giving our guests the opportunity for an elevator pitch and just introduce themselves. Ladies before gentlemen, Lanaya, why don't you go first? Who are you and what's your role? And then Josh.
Great. Thanks so much, Nick. So, Lene Nelson, I am the ecosystem manager for OpenIDL. I have held various positions the last couple of years with startups in the insurance industry, working for large service providers, and landed with the Linux Foundation and their insurance specific project about 2 years ago, OpenIDL. And we are growing and continuing to innovate and figure out how we can serve the entire industry. Yep,
Thank you. Josh?
you're welcome.
So, my name is Josh Hirschman. I'm the executive director at OpenIDL. Immediately before that, I was at the Connecticut Insurance Department as a deputy commissioner there, and I had some interactions with OpenIDL and in my role as at the Connecticut Insurance Department and understanding what they're trying to do and how OpenIDL is thinking about the overall transfer of data question and issue in the insurance industry is really a striking thing to me. And I wanted to be a part of it. And it being placed with the Linux Foundation is a big deal because the Linux Foundation has solved so many problems with the data transfer across lots of different industries, and being a neutral party and having all the anti-governance framework already set up, to me, it felt like such a nice fit to go from being a regulator to helping this, working with this organization at solving such an important question.
Yeah.
That's
And frankly, I think when I found out that you had a career as a regulator, I think that makes the story even more interesting. So, most of the blockchain activity that's come in has been technologists or entrepreneurs coming in looking to make a big score, and they have not been massively successful because there's been the struggle around the use case. And when I was exposed to OpenIDL, and then I found out that you two were there, it became much more interesting to me because there is a challenge, especially from carrier to regulator data conversation. And when I found out the way that it's done, which is just good old email and spreadsheets and good old elbow grease of analysts having to dig into those spreadsheets to clean them up, I said, oh, there could be something very useful here, especially in the state of Florida. So we'll start at brass tacks around the whole topic. Linnea, by the way, I apologize. I slightly
Oh my
pronounced
gosh.
your name incorrectly. Can we
I'm
talk
sure you can
about
imagine how many times that happens. It's all good.
so talk about OpenIDL, right? And blockchain and what's different this time? What is different between OpenIDL and some of the other blockchain initiatives that have been proposed over the past few years?
Yeah, I think, and it's funny you bring up blockchain because I think so I was working in tandem for the Hyperledger Foundation and OpenIDL when I started working for the Linux Foundation. And that's where I really, got my full education on, true blockchain, the applications, the enterprise level applications that are being used also in highly regulated spaces such as banking globally with the Hyperledger Foundation, all of the different even projects under that umbrella, whether it's around privacy and security, identity, and also just the exchange of data or funds, et cetera. But I think collectively, even in the space, we're I think there is such a negative sort of connotation with just the word blockchain right now. And I know even in our industry, 5 years ago, it was everything, just like AI is right now and generative AI. So we are kind of almost like rebranding anybody who has or is using blockchain, which even insurers have, technically been using blockchain for a very long time. Just, it wasn't named blockchain or et cetera. But we're, trying to move to a more, I wouldn't say like agnostic technologies, like use name, but, whether it's distributed ledger or something else that can move away from just this like pigeonholed blockchain. And yeah, I mean, we have all seen different collaborative efforts to use blockchain for data exchange. And I think what separates OpenIDL is, we are building on Hyperledger Fabric, which is a proven Hyperledger project and technology for highly regulated spaces at an enterprise level has failed. So I think that's why AAIS, who developed OpenIDL in 2020, brought it over to the Linux Foundation in 2021 for that reason, hoping that the success with other industries would carry over into ours.
And if I could add, Nick, just a little piece to that, I've only been at OpenIDL now since June of 23, and I have learned, and I sort of had a feeling that this was the case from my previous role as a regulator. All the carriers are have their own ethos, technology ethos, and it drives, internally how they want to operate. And it's not a bad thing. It's actually an interesting thing, and it makes insurance quirky and quite frankly, I think it makes insurance stronger because I think having lots of different avenues is always adds value to products. But at the end of the day, OpenIDL is not going to only operate in the distributed ledger space. We have lots of members who are interested in the utilization of data standardization, and how that data flows, whether it flows on a blockchain network or through an API call or whatever. We're so far away from this, but at some point, blockchain and APIs are going to be, in the past, and quantum, some QKD, quantum computing type transfer of network is going to, a transfer of data is going to be the leading process. So I think that the reason why OpenIDL makes sense and the Linux Foundation is important is because the Linux Foundation has sort of proven its worth in its ability to answer the big questions around how data can be transferred, around setting the data standards, and around allowing for competitive companies to work together on setting these standards, and sort of not turning over the keys, but letting an organization like the Linux Foundation run those networks. And so that's why I think that it makes OpenIDL, the differential here is the Linux Foundation. You have an organization that has done this time and time again, that can be very adaptive, and that they are focusing a lot of time and energy on their networks and what those networks look like. So having that
and
as
I'll
like
build off of that.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say, and I want to differentiate here. Yes, the networks, but the biggest thing I think with the Linux Foundation, and I think what Josh is getting to too, so I don't really answer the last question, but it's the governance over these networks. So everyone knows the Linux Foundation as, an open source, it's the largest leading global open source software development platform. But what's unique about OpenIDL is that it's an open governance network. And I think that's what's special about it, because it is technology agnostic. To Josh's point, it can evolve with whatever technology, the members choose to use. And that's what's so great about, having this open governance network is one, it's taking the trust, the model for trust of the Linux Foundation that has been, recycled through multiple successful projects. And then, so you have this trust that's built. It's a true nonprofit, non-proprietary intermediary that, competitors can come together to build applications, data standards, et cetera. But it's really this idea of a network that can evolve, through technology or through new products for, different use cases. But I just wanted to chime in on the governance part in the network.
Well, that also creates an environment because, carrier regulator relationships have a natural tension to them. And so
Mm-hmm.
Linnea, you brought up, competitors working together, but you also have
Yeah.
individual carriers or the industry as a total in a particular state also having to engage with the regulator, right? And so the Linux Foundation is a neutral party. As a nonprofit,
Yeah.
they're a neutral party that can work with both sides, right? To make sure that no party feels aggrieved, right? Like, oh, this is clearly, for to benefit the regulators, or this is clearly to benefit the insurance companies. That you can avoid some of those things.
Yeah, and I'll let Josh, I mean, this is one for Josh, but I will say, even the Linux the Linux Foundation really has no, stake in the industry. And I think that is something that really is anomalous, even from a consortium standpoint in the industry,
Mhm.
because there's no one, you know, no one at the Linux Foundation really at the end of the day has a reason to push things one way or the other. But I'll let Josh fully answer
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about issues with regulators and carriers, one of the largest issues is exchange of data. And the carriers are feel the pressure, and the regulators also feel pressure. The state system is set up where there are 56 different jurisdictions, and each one of those jurisdictions has their own regulatory standards. There's a lot of national setting of those standards at the NAIC, and there are a lot of standards that everyone recognizes are nationally across the board, but there are still different standards for different jurisdictions. The Federal Insurance Office, FIO, they have a very interesting role in insurance regulation, and it's almost they have this ability to basically say something to the effect of, if you insurance regulators aren't going to do something, we're going to act in this space. And so the FIO recently put out something on climate and questions around climate and how insurance regulators are understanding their marketplace. So the state regulators are under pressure to be able to respond to the Federal Insurance Office related to market level data around climate questions and what type of exposure their carriers have. So the the insurance carriers understand that there's this dynamic taking place, and what's happening is you're going to have the regulators say, here's the process. This is what we regulators want you carriers to do to start supplying us with some real time market level data related to these climate questions. And you just have to do it. You're going to have no, there's not going to be much question. They're just going to sort of force it down carriers' throats. The This is an opportunity for the carriers and the regulators to come together and talk about how that data exchange should take place and how best that could work. I'm not saying, this isn't me saying that the regulators aren't going to incorporate the carriers in some of their process, because they have the NAIC is there. There are NAIC meetings. Those NAIC meetings are addressing this question. The H committee is set up charged with decide one of the charges that they're working towards is understanding the data exchange between carrier and regulator. And there's a whole process going on there. But at some point, the cards are going to just sort of fall where they are. And the state regulators are going to be under a gun where they're going to have to institute something. And, you'll have 56 different ways the carriers are going to have to be supplying this data, right? You're going to have some jurisdictions are going to require an email in a Word document, and other jurisdictions are going to say, "Oh, we figured out how to use quantum computing. So let's do it that way somehow." So it would be much better if we could all come together, and there's no better place to do that than OpenIDL, where we have regulators and we have carrier members, and we discuss these questions and come up with data standards and the process that makes it work. So I think that seems a lot more reasonable than waiting it out and getting sort of one way or another. So
Which
yeah, I mean,
is what has really happened thus far, because we don't have a platform for, carriers and regulators to really come together on a, trusted playing field to work together.
Well,
well,
let me give
Yeah,
you
Josh,
let
you can
me
keep me honest on that one though.
no, but let me give you where that shows up, Linnea. Here in Florida, I recently learned that after one of the major hurricanes, the OIR here in Florida put out a data call, right? But in order for them to put out the data call, it took them the better part of a year to figure out
Yeah,
what are we doing with this special data call. Then they put the data call out,
yeah,
and sure enough, that what they found out coming back was a lot of the insurance companies were not capturing the information they were asking for.
mm,
Some insurance companies were capturing it. Sometimes they asked for something, and what they got back was not exactly the data element that they needed. So it required quite a bit of human intervention to kind of clean those up. It took the better part of 2 years to
yeah,
come up with a
yeah.
report. And the thing is, this was a critical report. This was all
Right.
about the litigation
Yeah, yeah.
frenzy that was
Mhm.
occurring. And it's like that is unacceptable. Like in a day and age where data is so fungible, let's make it fungible, right? Like, so
Yeah.
we have to get over these things of trust. But I think this works, Josh. I think this works with any data call. Like, I think it just basically boils down to once the system's set up and it's like, okay, this is what it is we're going to be asking for, and it's going to occur at 12:01 a.m. on Saturday, February, whatever tomorrow is, 10th, right? And we're gonna tap your, we're gonna have the exchange, and you're good. Like no spreadsheets. And once it comes into OpenIDL, the regulators don't have to like aggressively manipulate it. It seems like the perfect use case to solve like a really significant problem that we're having here in Florida. I imagine other states have the same problem.
yeah. No, it is really the perfect use case for that. And look, there have to be applications that would be built out on top of the analytic nodes, so the regulators can understand the data that comes in through those nodes. But the reason why this data, you highlighted such an important piece, that it's slow. And right now, the way the system works right now is slow. But the reason why it's so important that it's fast is oftentimes insurance departments are not requesting this data just because they want the data. They're requesting it because they're being asked by the federal government to understand what the uninsured market is after an event, and to better understand the amount of grants that the state is going to get, or the amount of resources that the state is going to get based on what the market looks like. And so when you have slow data, it just slows down the whole process. It slows down it for the consumer. It slows down the process for the state. And also it really bogs down the first responders throughout this process too, because getting the
Exactly.
right amount of people on the scene, fixing structures. I guess they wouldn't really be first responders, but having the adjusters appropriately out there receiving the
Hmm.
appropriate information is super important. And it all moves slower now than it needs to. And just think about the auto claim space right now, right? I mean, it has advanced so much over the course of 10 years, 5 years probably, where it used to maybe take a couple weeks to have an adjuster give the final price. Now it could be relatively instantaneous. There's no reason that same not the exact same process, but there's no reason that the data exchange between the regulator and the carrier can't speed up to something like that down the road, because it's important and it makes sense. So I think that Florida is a great use case. Florida has so many cat events, which is super unfortunate for the region. And I know that you have carriers that are constantly trying to get out. California is also always having issues with carriers trying to leave. It's just tough markets. So I I believe that having a better data exchange between carrier and regulator will make those markets stronger, and will make them more efficient for the underlying carriers as well.
Yeah. What's really painful Josh, is, here in Florida, is a lot of the legislative reforms that had to occurred in special session, like at while we were standing on the edge of the cliff of the abyss of an uninsurable Florida. And part of that is like the insurance companies did drag their feet. Like they were like, what do you need this data for? And you shouldn't be asking this
Mhm.
question. And I envision that OpenIDL, with the help of the Linux Foundation, could be I'm not sure if this is your role. I'm not sure if you want this to be your role, but can, as the neutral third party, can act as almost like an impartial adjudicator on like getting the parties together and like, hey, we just want to move quickly, right? Like,
Well,
so, you know,
we certainly
Um,
wouldn't adjudicate the types of data that gets flown on the that gets transferred on the network. But
Explain why too. Yeah.
I mean, but what we would adjudicate, what we would participate in, is helping set those standards up so that there's not
Mhm.
really a question of what data is being requested for certain events.
mhm,
There's a cat event, there's a standard data form out there currently that a lot of states
Mhm.
worked on and a lot of carriers worked on. The NAIC has it lives with the NAIC program as well, and stripping those data elements down to what's required and using that on a network. And this is something that AAIS and OpenIDL has worked on for quite some time, is trying to understand, related to a cat event, what data elements are necessary for the regulator, bringing the regulator into those conversations, getting the carrier's take on that, setting them so that we don't have this fight. Because you're right. One of the things that happens is, I might get, in my former role, I might get jazzed up. Oh, I really want to know this data. I think it'd be very helpful if the insurance department had
mhm.
this information, because it's going to allow us to better understand the market and better understand certain issues within the market. I will have conversations internally, then I'll turn around and say, all right, we should maybe try to do a data call here. Talk to a bunch of carriers. They're going to tell me all the reasons why I don't need any of that data. And that process, that back and forth, it's always there. It's always ongoing. So the OpenIDL wouldn't be there to sort of facilitate that. But what OpenIDL would be there is these is creating the network, creating the standards for the exchange to take place, sort of without question. Once we have the standard set up, there shouldn't be much adjudication involved as to whether or not this data should or shouldn't be collected or distributed to the regulator.
And I also, Josh, I want to add to that just to explain too about OpenIDL and the Linux Foundation, and how I don't want to say double-edged sword because that is not what it is at all, because I truly believe that the this model and structure really will be what will make this successful in the industry. But with that said, the beauty of it, but also the struggle of it is member driven. Josh and I have no say in what ultimately what happens, which is that's what makes this work, because it is absolutely the board and members that make all of the decisions. And that's that consensus holds a lot of power and holds and maintains that trust and maintains the governance. But I think in a lot of ways, it it moves just as decisions are moving just as slowly as we all would expect. I mean, we've all worked in the industry long enough now to understand that time is a very important thing to the industry and is not taken lightly. So I think from that standpoint, it takes a little bit of time, at least to get to the point where we can move things more quickly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, completely. I think what would be helpful as well is from the Linux Foundation has been successful setting these kind of data standards up elsewhere. Can you talk a little
Mm-hmm.
bit about like I think that's what potentially makes this the most interesting part is it's an organization that knows what they're doing and they've done this before. It's kind of like a rinse and repeat on they like this foundation has chops around knowing how to execute on everything you guys just talked about. Can you talk about from the Linux Foundation like other initiatives that folks that are listening to this might be aware of and maybe have never heard of the Linux Foundation.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a lot of ways, there are projects, most of the, internet or applications that we use, especially, mobilely or on a mobile device, is built on Linux one way or another. But I would say, outside of Hyperledger Foundation, which I can talk about forever because it really is, I think, in terms of data standards and really being able to bring all of the players together, the necessary players, especially competitors, to see the advantage of working together, for bottom line success. That is one example. But I think a fun example is the Academy Software Foundation, which is focused on entertainment, Hollywood, which is also a highly competitive industry. And they have figured out a way to work together and create, animation pipelines, 3D data, standards that everyone uses now. And it's really driving the entertainment industry forward, and everyone is super pumped to work together. And if you get a second, check it out. But movies like, and I'm trying to think now, but the Avatar movies were built, the animation there and the 3D animation was built on the foundation. And I think you'll see a list of all the things that we will all, we're aware of, we know, we've seen. And I think that is really cool. And again, it's something fun. And I think it's something that we can even take from the insurance industry, knowing that, our data is, essentially insurance and that competitive advantage. And I think it is in the entertainment industry as well. So I think that's a great example of a Linux Foundation project where competitors work together. Yeah. Oh, you're on mute.
Josh, did you want to say something?
No, I think Linnea covered it. I mean, this is not relevant to the question. The only thing I'd add is just, you know, the way in which the transfer of data takes place is secure and private and would meet
Yep.
all the obligations of all the different regulatory requirements that carriers might have, or
Totally.
it's been done and done again in the financial services space. So we have with our members worked through lots of different security issues, and we are always willing to have those discussions, but ultimately we get to the same spot where it does work out.
Yeah. We've been talking about data standards for transaction of data from carrier to regulator, but it's obviously much bigger than that, right? Like there's an opportunity here from a data standard standpoint. Like carriers got the same problem sending data to reinsurers, so it's pretty much the exact same thing. It's hey, here's our monthly bordereau, here's our spreadsheet in the way that you want it, and then someone on the other end has to take that spreadsheet and they have to import it and maybe scrub it and clean it up. So and then there brokers sending submissions to carriers or routing it through a wholesale operation. Like there's this standardization problem all the way through the system. So this has an actual opportunity to help standardize across different transactions, not just the regulator and the carrier. Can have you guys like thought about that?
And even so cross industry as well. And I'll let Josh speak, directly to within the industry, but my mind and my background coming from, auto and different, external data sets that aren't being used right now in underwriting. When I first heard about OpenIDL and in its inception, that's exactly where my mind went to, which is great, again, that we're at the Linux Foundation, because we have projects like automotive grade Linux where, most of the big entities within the OEM automotive section are working on the same things within the automotive industry and pushing, the standards there in that industry forward. And you think about what that would look like to create data standards across industries and what that would mean for the insurance industry. So that's definitely top of mind, especially with the loss ratios and the rate hikes and auto right now. But I'll let Josh go within the
Yeah.
industry.
Well, no, I would just say that we proved this out a little bit. We had a proof of concept in North Dakota where they did uninsured
Yeah.
motorists, and we worked with led with a in partnership with AIS driving these questions around the DMV information, the insurance department information, and the carrier information, and creating the appropriate analytic nodes between the organizations and checking it off, and it worked. But Nick, to your specific sort of use case, you're spot on. I mean, just
Yeah.
replace regulator with reinsurer, or just replace regulator with MGA, and now you could do MGA reinsurer, MGA carrier
Yeah.
reinsurer. I mean, it's really infinite, and we've the system that we have works, and once the data standards are set and the use cases will just continue to multiply and multiply. And Linnea's point around the OEM auto, I mean, the loss ratios are abysmal right now, and it is so difficult because the cars are currently, under you're paying under for a lot of the technology that you have on your insurance, and these heavier, EV vehicles with filled with technology are difficult to price, but there should be better data transfer between carrier and OEM, and that data should allow for the carrier to better price the product. I mean, we don't need to get into it, but thinking about how Tesla,
Oh,
although
no.
their loss ratios aren't great, and they're struggling as a carrier in some regards, they have all the data that you could possibly imagine or want from a
Underwater. Yeah.
underwriting perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if you start having that data transfer exist, you'll start seeing better pricing, more real pricing being more
Our
accurate.
behavioral changes with the drivers as
Yeah.
they have more access to see that data as well.
I mean, I love the future of like what I love to think about is if you hop in a car, right, you should and you're speeding, your auto insurance should go up immediately if you're speeding that car. But my life insurance should also go up because I'm doing something a little bit riskier, and my homeowner's insurance should go down because I'm not home. You should only be paying for the risk that's in front of you at that very moment. And the only way we get there is having the networks in place that underpins all of the flow of this data. That's why I'm so excited about
Yeah.
OpenIDL and the Linux Foundation generally. And I just say the first problem we want to solve is this exchange between regulator and
Right.
carrier,
Because
because
they will
that
need to
is a
be there every step
real
of the
big issue.
way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
but I can think of like the fallout from that are all very interesting use cases. For example, I'm thinking of situations where a contractor has done some work on a property, right? And the contractor put the roof in wrong, right?
Mhm.
But you didn't find out till 10 years later. But the contractor does no longer exist. But in this kind of system, that can be captured at the time that it's occurring, almost like a Carfax. Like, okay, who worked on the property and who was their insurance
Absolutely.
company?
Yep.
Right. So
Exactly.
now there's a
Yeah,
legal recourse.
absolutely.
Now
Yep.
the roofer may not exist anymore, but the insurance company
Hmm.
who was insuring them at the time they installed the roof, they still exist. And so
Yep.
there's a remedy. And one thing here in Florida that we found out was I've been speaking to premium manufacturers of roof equipment, right?
Yep.
And some of these manufacturers have 30 to 50-year warranties. But when a claim occurs, the homeowner never thinks about it. The home may have changed hands. The new owner may
Yeah.
not even know that the roof was replaced 5 years ago and it's got a warranty associated with
Hmm.
it. And that is something else that is outside of the insurance realm, but the insurers are getting dragged into that. How many claims, how many
Yeah.
roofs did they end up repairing that were under warranty that could have been the manufacturer that covered that? I'm sure every single insurance company would have been very happy to cede that off to the warranty, but they didn't know. Right. And so this seems like an
Yeah.
opportunity to
And that's an
capture that
easy
information
blockchain
and
use
store
case.
it and store it like
Hmm.
somewhere through perpetuity.
Yeah.
So it's like you're not requiring a single entity to step out from too far from their comfort zone. It's let the technology do its work.
Yep.
What do you guys think
Yeah,
of that? Chinese
it's spot on. I
drywall,
mean,
Yeah,
bad
it's I
contractors,
we talked about this.
warranties.
Yeah.
well, I mean, when you think about like, I mean, I'm just going, I know we're talking about PNC, but think about it from like a health insurance perspective, because health insurance carriers want you to use their services, because if you're using them on the front end, you are you're less likely to have a major issue on the back end. Like they've put a value on preventative care, and it should ultimately drive down premium costs, because if everyone is using their health insurance appropriately, you should be a healthier person, and overall premiums should go down. If every consumer is using every warranty and every service appropriately, it should drive pricing down across the board, because those warranties have the sureties behind them. Those sureties are being paid for by the underlying product. So everything is calculated. The claims should live where they belong, not, you shouldn't have to ding your homeowners for a claim that you could have gotten a warranty for. And if the carrier doesn't know that this warranty exists, there would be no subrogation. So it's just, you have to connect it all, Nick. And your point is spot on, like in the sense that if you have everything in some sort of distributed ledger and it just continues to live, it should ultimately
Yep.
make for a better, healthier marketplace generally.
And you're pulling in more data as well. At the end of the day, if you are engaged, you're more engaged with your customer. You're pulling in this data, and it's mutually beneficial to be pulling in more data from your customer, more engagement touch points, and more educational opportunities, I would think, too, for
Yeah.
your customer.
I mean, I think we could just continue on this conversation, because you guys just keep giving me more
Basically.
ideas. Like I'm thinking of, the battle with smart sensors, right? Like insurance companies are kind of wringing their hands, thinking like, how are we going to manage? Like all of these companies have different protocols. How do we manage it all? We can't possibly manage it all. Good. Let's have an industry standard around managing it, and then you don't have to worry about managing it. You just plug it in and connects. But like smart, Josh, to your point, smart sensors, right? When I have debates with insurance professionals about this, I'm like, let's be very clear. As much as we don't know whether the smart sensors will actually reduce loss costs, we know they won't make them worse, right? So we're at least at a
Yep.
flat line around that. But when you have a doorbell that's like capturing the picture, like how many YouTube videos do we have to see of people snatching Amazon boxes and they get caught because there was a Ring doorbell? I mean, these smart devices are detecting water before it gets out of control, detecting fire before it gets out of control, break-ins, all of this stuff. The expectations are it's going to reduce loss costs, and we can give it time to actuarially determine what the right amount is.
Yeah.
But the insurance industry dragging their feet around this is very much, I think, part and parcel of the bigger problem that OpenIDL is trying to solve here.
Yep. Yeah. I agree with you 100%, Nick.
I think we should stop there. As soon as someone says, I agree with you 100%, that's the end of the
100%.
interview. So
Josh never says that to me, so you're so lucky.
Josh, Linnea, thank you very much. Like this was very eye-opening. I will do my part to promote this, but I will put all of your contact information in the show notes, and let's do the Herculean task of
Great.
promoting OpenIDL. But thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much, Nick. Thank you.